I prefer them to not think of rough as a penalty. It's an annoyance, but it's not a penalty. Don't get them into the mindset of having to drive it in the fairway all the time. Now I just say greens, like just how many greens in regulation did you hit? That's all I care about. The higher we can get that number up, the better you're going to score. You can be average at approach, you can be average with your around the green, you can be kind of average with your putting. But if you're hitting a lot more greens and or a good amount of greens, you're going to score well over the month or two.
Welcome to the Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Adams, and today my guest is Jon Tattersall, a coach who made the journey from England to becoming one of the most sought-after instructors in all the United States. In this episode, Jon breaks down why curiosity matters way more than raw talent, why your junior golfers should be swinging out of their shoes, and the one stat that actually predicts scoring. Hint, it's not fairways hit. We get into ground forces, speed development, the myths that hold juniors back, and how parents can set their kids up to learn from failure instead of being afraid of it. Before we jump in, I'm pumped, though, to announce a brand new partner of the Golf Parent, Craftsman Golf. Craftsman Golf has been making premium head covers for over 13 years. We're talking driver covers, putter covers, custom designs, and I've got a bunch of their premium plush animal head covers right behind me. My son is obsessed with their crocodile. You can look at this quality. It's incredible. And you see, Rory's got the dog, Tiger had the tiger. What is your animal? And whatever it is, I bet you they have it on their site. Check them out. Craftsman Golf, you get 15% off too for all the Golf Parent listeners. Just put Golf Parent in at checkout. Enjoy 15% off. So now, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Jon Tattersall. Hey, Jon. Welcome to the Golf Parent Podcast.
Brian, thanks for having me on. Look forward to chatting with you.
So I've been looking forward to this for months now because one of our first guests was Coach Maureen Farrell, and she just highly recommended that you come on the podcast, that you're one of her mentors. She spoke so highly of you. And so I'm glad that you were able to tee it up and kind of make it happen because, you're one of the OG godfathers in the game, and you've got nothing but information to share. So really excited for this.
Thank you. I had a lot of inquisitive minds early on in my life, and then I like finding other inquisitive minds. So Mo is definitely that person, and she's got tons of energy for learning, which is great. And her ego doesn't get in the way like a lot of us coaches do. So it's been great fun getting to know her and help her with stuff. And she recommended me that we speak, and I'm all for it. It's great.
I'm grateful that she did. So speaking of maybe about just kind of the game and like working with instructors, your background. So you're from England originally, and then what brought you to the U.S. to kind of start your career?
No internet, basically. So if you think of, I was born in Northwest England, so climate not good, obviously. Tried to play professionally, loved it. Couldn't find out enough about how to get better in that part of the world. Golf lessons were kind of like, you're not playing well, you need a lesson. There was not much of the development stuff going on. Pete Cowan is somebody I played against and knew a little bit back then. I've gotten to know him more as the years have gone by, and Pete's one of the preeminent coaches in Europe. I thought he was a great player. He was, but what I didn't understand is he wasn't a great player. Came to the US sometime early 80s, late 70s. Spent some time with Gardner Dickinson, took his own money, learned a lot from Gardner Dickinson, came over and then went back to the UK and became a very, very good ball striker. But looking at him, it looked like a natural sport, and I didn't feel it was a natural sport, particularly for me. I thought I was the only one that felt that way. And then the more I got into it, I found it's not a natural sport really for anybody. But it's really just, Faldo was dominating European golf. He was working with David Ledbetter. Ledbetter was in the US, so it felt like the center of the golf universe was definitely in the US and not England, Scotland, which allegedly was the home of golf.
And so you originally came over to the US to find instruction and to be able to work on your own personal professional game. And then how did that translate then into what you're doing now with the Fusion and Titleist and everything?
Yeah, it just a constant journey of trying to learn, quite honestly. I loved playing. I tried to play for a living. Didn't have enough money, didn't really understand enough about it. So I had to work. I was a golf pro as well. In the golf operations, didn't really enjoy that. Really enjoyed the coaching aspect of it, and was really driven to try and find answers for myself and other people. So there was no kind of massive plan here. This was very much trying to work through it and figure out how to, get better myself and along the way help other people. And I'd love to tell you there's some master plan to all this, but there really wasn't. It's just been a non-stop journey, basically.
Well, they say that like kind of wisdom comes too late and that youth is wasted on the young. So I'm curious then,
Hmm.
John. So what were maybe three aha moments or like kind of takeaways in your journey of understanding your own swing and like how actually do you, strike the ball properly, swing mechanics, all the rest of that? Like, do you remember maybe three kind of things that you're like, oh, if only the boy in Northwest England would have known this when he was 16, it would have changed everything.
Yeah, I think one of the main ones was I thought good players were really good and they just knew something and they had something that other players didn't. So I wish I'd have got to the point of being able to ask questions earlier and not been so afraid to ask questions to look stupid.
Mm.
Um, so that was a big point for me. So now I'm at a point where it's like I just ask questions and try and go from there. And there's a lot of the other thing that was interesting was the best players are incredibly inquisitive, whether they're able to verbalize that or they just are able to do it and play around. They're incredibly inquisitive. So you think, okay, they're awesome, but they're constantly trying to get better. So that striving to get better and that not apologizing for it, I think they're really, really good at. I thought early on, this is 30, 40 years ago, I thought you had to play it cool if you're a good player and try not to act like you were trying too hard. It was kind of that balance. But they're all. I mean, the money now is crazy, where they're all trying very very hard. So I wish I'd have been okay with that. The fact I was completely my mind was on steroids, trying to figure out what would proper answers out there, and been okay with that. Whereas I was trying not to be that person for a long time. And then I wish I'd have talked to the physios and engineers earlier because they really help with guidelines of what has to happen in the golf swing and how the body moves and what the clubs are actually trying to do. So if I understood the game, like actually what's going on, the physics of it earlier, and the medical stuff on the body, I think that would have helped tremendously.
Oh,
And we just there's too many folklores, around golf, and we're dispelling many of those now, which is great, I think.
let's get into that because I mean that is what I watch your YouTube channel. You're great at kind of breaking down just the way your body actually works, like the way your hands work and what should be happening with your thumbs and where the grip. I mean, there's so many, like you said, myths, and it seems like in golf. I mean, I'm not a golf pro. I'm not, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm
Mhm.
trying to get to a 10 handicap here. I mean, I just don't play enough.
Good.
And it's like when I get out there, it's you're always just trying to figure it out. Usually on the range before you're about to go play golf, then it all just goes to heck after that anyway. So
Hmm. Hmm.
what are some of those folklores, as you say, or myths around golf that a lot of golf parents are just confused with, where you think this is the right way, but it seems to be the science or fact it's not.
Yeah, I think honestly, as golf pros, we've done a poor job of educating. Really, we don't set down the parameters of what's going on. First of all, you know, with the golf club, what you're trying to do. If you want to play better, you got to hit it further. Basically, that's the biggest thing. Whereas when I grew up, it was a bit more of I hit it plenty far, but it was always like the trees are full of long hitters, so they were almost handicapping you. Whereas it's like, okay, yeah, you're going to hit it offline, but you need to be developing to hit it further at certain age groups, and this is mainly for kids. Before you can generate muscle, that's a good time to work on speed. If you don't have muscle and you're trying to work on speed, you're not going to get accuracy. That shouldn't be. I mean, you don't want to lose every shot you hit, but you certainly need to try and get the speed going before the muscles kick in the golf game. So
Can you
um,
explain that a little bit more, John? So muscle is almost, and I guess intuitively it makes sense. It's like a forehand in tennis where you want that whipping action. So
hmm.
you don't
Hmm.
see big bulky guys creating like anybody that played another sport and has muscle. You're trying to muscle the ball to go faster. Doesn't work at all. You
Yeah,
need almost
the
that whip.
you need that whip. I mean, the simplest version is you're trying to move the middle of your body, proximal speed to distal speed, the distal bit being the end of the club. So if you don't have a lot of strength, you have to cognitively find ways to make the golf club to move quicker. So it's much more of a cognitive exercise than it is a physical exercise. Clearly, there's a motor skill to it, but if you're trying to make something go quicker at the end of the chain, you have to figure out how to use your body in an effective way to do that. And if you can't overpower it, that's a great way to kind of learn the game. Whereas if a kid starts at 18, 19, where they're quite strong, they feel strength in the proximal, they feel strong in the inside of the body, if you will. But if they don't know how to get the club head moving quicker around them, that would be where you'd see somebody working hard and not getting much energy to the club head. Whereas you look at a young kid swinging and the body's all over the place a little bit, but they're getting a lot of hit out of the movement they're making. So you can develop that before you get the strength. Once the strength kicks in, we tend to go into now we're swinging a 1 pound weight, basically the golf club is. And so we're trying to move the weight too hard versus get the head of the club moving a lot quicker than the grip. And if you're quite weak, you have to figure out how to get that going. That's more of a movement to me than just a pure strength exercise.
And then the muscle helps to stabilize when that comes in. So once you've developed speed, or at least you understand intuitively or intellectually how to move the head of the golf club faster, now with the muscle, you can kind of stabilize it and sequence it to get more accuracy. Am I understanding that correct? Hey, golf parents, quick pause here. If you're enjoying this conversation and getting value from it, do me a quick favor. Hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more parents who are on the same journey as you, raising the next generation of great golfers. All right, that's it. And now back to the show.
So I mean, you're gripping the club basically. I mean, again for kids, don't tell them to grip the club lightly. They don't have enough strength. They need to hold on like their life depends on it. Literally, it almost does with the golf club. Um, so you got to grip the club firmly. So a lot of the speed we see as players get better is actually the ability to decelerate, and that helps get the shaft of the club to square up properly. So if you're constantly trying to apply more speed to the grip, at some point, if you don't decelerate properly, it doesn't get to the club head. So as the kids get stronger, they can accelerate, get the club moving, and then as they're able to decelerate the body, get some body control, then they can get the face on the ball pretty well. Um, when you look at a golfer swinging, it doesn't look like they're decelerating, but the aspects of the from the ground up is slowing quite rapidly. I've had a few parents come in over the years, and if you look at just a junior boy, for instance, they're swinging and they look like they get through the ball. They may be off balance at the end of the swing. They look like they're getting dragged towards the target, and their head is way back, their legs are forward, and they kind of slinging the club through. And I've had a number of parents come in and go, well, for instance, Tiger doesn't look like that. Well, Tiger he was probably one of the best we'll ever see, but he was incredibly strong by the time people saw him on TV. It's not a fair fight. So when you're swinging a golf club, even though the club doesn't change weight, the force required to control that club goes up significantly. So if you have a young golfer out there and they're perfectly balanced at the end of their swing, they're probably not swinging anywhere near fast enough. So being off balance at the end of the swing or being off balance at any part of the swing is fine as I'm concerned, because they're going beyond what they're capable of strength wise to get the golf club going. And if we rob that from them, they won't generate that speed. And then as we get better, as stronger, and coaches get into interventions, we'll get control out of it.
This is a big one because talking about folklore here or myths, like I remember hearing, Tiger quote his father saying you could swing it as hard as you can as long as you're in balance at the end of the swing. And it seems to be, we're very fixated on ending in balance, that nice trophy pose at the end. And what I'm hearing is that as the young junior is, just learning the game, it's okay if they're unbalanced. And we're seeing that with Scotty Scheffler's, finish as well. What's important is learning to just create as much speed as possible, really learn how to swing the club. And then as they get a little bit older, more muscle, develop a little bit more, then we can focus on finishing in balance if that's even part of their DNA. Is that correct?
That would be correct. And again, back to when I grew up, people was, you heard players saying they're swinging at 80% all the time. Well, they're not swinging at 80% now on tour. They're giving it a good rip. Peter Thompson's not a name that any kids would remember, but he won 5 Open championships. He said, I mean, the equipment was different, but he said, a drive is like the second serve in tennis. It isn't anymore. Like they're fully ripping it. They are in tennis too, but they're fully ripping it. So it's like it was folklore, not data driven. And so if you're going to miss a fairway, I'd rather be down there further than short and crooked. And we found that, trying to hit a fairway doesn't guarantee you're going to hit a fairway. So if you're taking power out of the swing, again, I'd rather be in the rough with a wedge in your hand than in the middle with a fairway with a 5-iron, assuming the rough isn't just so deep they can't move it. So data's been amazing to try and help understand which aspects of the game are important. And there's some negative connotations about the distance players are driving it now, like, oh, the ball's going too far. It's not the ball, it's the athlete, and they're setting up to drive the ball a long way. It's a learned skill. It's insulting to say it's a ball issue. The ball is certainly helping, but we know more about the ball. We know more about the club. We know more about the athlete. So it's a real skill to try and drive it well. And for any parent out there, I would tell my kid to hit it as high and as far as possible. And height is a big deal. It doesn't go high if you're not swinging fast.
I love that. So encouraging your child to just swing it as hard as possible and try and get it as high as possible. Because that will translate as it continue to develop into just more distance down the road.
It will. It also, the way that you have to release it to hit it high is a great timing mechanism as well. So if you know, I grew up in Northwest England where we were using a lot of golf balls. It was quite windy. So you felt like you had to fly at everything. You're not really freely letting the club head catch up with you. So you're kind of holding everything off a little bit. And that's not the way to develop a good uh, technique either. Jack Nicklaus hit it high. Tom Watson hit it high. Greg Norman hit it high. Tiger hit it high. Um, they're all hitting it high now because we have range, you know, we have launch monitors to know what is needed. I remember 25 years ago now, which is hard to believe that Tigers, well, probably more than that actually, it's close to 30 years ago. I went to Titleist and they said that Tiger's hitting the ball higher with less spin than anybody else they've tested at a high level professional. You know, he was trying to do what the long drive guys were trying to do back then. And so he completely flipped the switch. And then he flipped the switch completely because the wound golf ball is no more because of Tiger, basically. So the height is important for carry distance, but it's also technique as well.
That's interesting. You mentioned before that you talked about data being able to help us to understand the game and what actually the best players are doing. But there's also the other side of it, which is just kind of information overload, where,
Mm-hmm.
the average golf parent is looking at, launch angles, ball speed, all these different things, but then also
Mm-hmm.
tracking stats on the actual course. If we could just
Mm-hmm.
simplify this, dumb this down a little bit for the parents out there. First of all, what stats should they be tracking on the actual golf course, and what, stats are most important? Let's just stay with driving for a second to kind of look
Mm-hmm.
at for
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Yeah, distance relative to their age. I don't know if anybody's got great information or a good enough data set, but like literally when I coach younger kids, like, hey, are you hitting it past the people you're playing with? And you know, are they or not? You know, are they close? I mean, obviously everybody's a little different size. But if you're driving out there with the kids and they're scoring well, that's a good indicator. Can you get to the green from wherever you are? So if you're in the rough, but you can still get to the green, then I'm not too worried about fairways. Now, if they're not playing USG events, they're playing generally, you know, country club style golf courses. So the rough is not too penal usually. But if the rough is penal and they don't have enough speed to get the ball out of the rough, then that becomes a bit of an issue. But they're not going to hit in the rough every time. So I prefer them to not think of rough as a penalty. It's an annoyance, but it's not a penalty. Don't get them into the mindset of having to drive it in the fairway all the time. So again, back to where I got fairways and greens. Well, now I just say greens. Like, just how many greens in regulation did you hit? That's all I care about. The higher we can get that number up, the better you're going to score. You can be average at approach. You can be average with your around the green. You can be kind of average with your putting. But if you're hitting a lot more greens or a good amount of greens, you're going to score well over the month or two. And try your best not to look at instant trends. Try and look at a trend over at least a month. Don't react to every round. And I try and really get kids to get everybody to honestly not react to one golf shot. Again, back to the folklore stuff, if you listen to golfers speak, it's a complete waste of time as far as I'm concerned, because they'll tell you, hey, so and so hit da 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 da, or it's all outlier stories. Those are the interesting stories, but they're stories. It's what is happening over a period of time. And so kids are not reacting to something as much, and they're on more of a constant journey of trying to do the right thing, which for me is hitting as many greens as possible.
I love that because that does simplify things. And when you think about it, if you're tracking, for example, fairways hit, technically, if you're just like in the first cut, or you're just slightly off, I mean, that doesn't count as a fairway hit. But if you're down
Mhm.
there, if you just outdrove, your playing partners by 20 yards or whatever it might be, I mean, that shouldn't matter. Like it makes sense that if you're just following greens hidden regulation, that will really tell you kind of what you need to know about how you're progressing or trending as a young golfer.
And a lot of times these kids that, they don't have time for a practice round a lot of times. So you're assume that the architect is not on your side. The architect's job is to make the golf course demanding, and they're not there to help you. So if you think about the way a golf course is designed, when you look at a golf course, or particularly for kids, the bunkers are quite tall, so they can't see beyond the bunker onto the green. They don't get a good idea of depth perception. But what I encourage parents to do is go look on Google Earth prior to the round and get the kid to look from above at what's happening. If you look at most golf courses, the bunkers are the trouble all around the front. I joke and tell people if you want to putt on good grass, hit to the back of the green because nobody's ever there. So you're gonna that's where the grass is nice on greens. Um, but try and get onto the green somehow. Pick a carry distance. You're on. If you hit the ball well, we should be beyond the pin. So try and make sure you're looking at the center of the green. What's that number? How do I carry it at least that distance or get it to go that distance? And just remember, the architect is not trying to do you any favors. That's not their job.
So a good strategy then that you're revealing to hit more greens in regulation is to focus on the center of the green number and just hit
Mhm.
past that. So focusing perhaps on the center of the green to the back of the green and focus on making sure that you're hitting into that area, knowing that some of your mishits, your fat shots will go short. Very seldomly will you just absolutely crush the ball over, but even if you do, it'll be a simple little chip and a putt back into the green.
More than likely. I mean, obviously, if you see a green and there's trouble long, then obviously
Sure.
I'd take that out of the equation. But the other thing is too, generally, depending on where you're playing in the country, the greens aren't massively firm like a USGA event or like an Open Championship. So if it lands on the green, it's likely to stop. And if kids are hitting a lot of greens and it's not stopping, then I would certainly look at the fitting to see when we're doing stuff. It's like land angles is important. So if the kid's hitting a long way, but it's coming in very flat, the ball might not stop. So they're technically hitting a lot of greens, just not stopping on the green. That again, that goes back to can they hit it high? If they don't quite add enough speed to it, then look at equipment and get with a good fitter and try and find what can you use that's going to have land angles is what we look at. So there is a ton of information like spin, launch, blah blah blah. If you just look at land angles, that gives you an idea of is it functional that shot or not. And a good fitter can then back into to get the right land angle, he can do whatever, or he or she can do whatever. But I just look at land angles now.
What club is I'm assuming it would be scoring clubs? Is that from like
They all
7 iron
vary a little bit.
on or
Yeah, so with wedges on the PGA Tour, and so kids are not going to quite this high, but you're close to 50-degree land angle or slightly over that on the PGA Tour with wedges. Mid irons are in the mid 40s land angle, and longer irons in the low 40s, and the driver is somewhere in 35 to 40, 35 to 38-degree land angle. Kids, because they don't generate as much speed, the land angle might not be quite there. But just see what you can how you can optimize your carry and look at that angle of descent. And again, a fitter, whether it be a ball fitter, the club pro could figure out, okay, this ball spins a bit more than this ball. I've got a Titleist contract, so the Pro V1 is designed to spin a bit more than the regular Pro V. So most of the PGA Tour uses probably a Pro V now, but a junior would want more of a Pro V1X or a spinnier ball because we need that land angle. Whereas the parents may have heard, okay, I've got to hit it high with low spin. That doesn't work for kids. They don't have the speed to get the altitude.
that makes sense. W- So speaking of our kids, and we're looking at data, we're always comparing, right? We're always trying to
Hmm.
see, where's little Sally or Johnny fitting with
Hmm.
their peers and in the game. I I wanted to kind of maybe just address potentially a myth. I'm not too sure, but is there such a thing as a naturally gifted like talent, like a naturally gifted player? Does that exist, or is there something else that you've seen that goes into the best players in the world in their development?
Yeah, I think it's to me it's a myth. If it wasn't, then as coaches we're just trying to find the most natural player and coach them. I tell a lot of kids when they're 10, 11, 12, rarely have we seen anybody that dominated it. Because some parents will come and they're like, hey, my kid's good, but there's this kid who's winning everything in his age group at 10, 11, 12. I said, if you go back through history and look at who was dominating over the years at that age group, rarely did they become the best ever or the best, they didn't reach their potential, if you will. Um, the number one player in the world right now is a prime example of that, Scotty Scheffler. Um, like I think Bryson said the other day, he played with Scotty a lot in college and beat him like a drum, and that's not happening anymore. So there's development time, and every player is a little different. I think to raise your chances, if I was trying to make a natural player, I'm using air quotes, if you will, for that, make them as good an athlete as you can. Have them play some other sports, both from a mindset and physical development. If you specialize too early, which you've probably heard before, it robs them with that from athletic ability. So as coaches now, we know more technically than we ever have done on what we need to do to get better. But if a player doesn't have good body awareness, or they don't have the ability to throw a ball very far or kick a ball very far. I grew up in England, so it was more kicking than it was throwing. It was a different hitting sport. It was cricket, not baseball. But I always ask kids when they come for a lesson, I ask everybody, tell me about what other sports you played. If they're a pitcher in baseball, I'm more excited than if they're a hitter. Pitchers have way better awareness of, if you have to throw a ball with speed and accuracy, you have great hand-eye coordination or hand awareness of where your release points are. Whereas a hitter, they're just swinging like crazy and they have no real concept of impact. Whereas impact is a random event for a baseball hitter, whereas a pitcher in baseball, they know exactly where their release points are. So it's very easy for them to understand in space kind of where the club head is. If they played hockey, you're Canadian. If they played hockey, I'm kind of excited. I didn't understand hockey coming over to the States at first, but I came up to Canada a few times to do events and coaching events. And I was like, these guys are pretty good. And they take a short backswing, they slam it, and a lot of the lefties up here too. So it was like it was a great crossover sport. Um, Tennis is a good crossover sport too. Basketball, I've taught a lot of good players that were basketball players. So the ability to move sideways and jump is awesome. Don't let your kids play American football unless they're a quarterback or a wide receiver.
Sure. Okay. So that you've already preemptively answered one of my big questions, which is like if
Mm-hmm.
you could have that wish list of sports for
Mm-hmm.
your kid to play. It sounds like it's tennis, obviously just tennis in general,
Mm-hmm.
basketball, trying
Yeah.
to be a pitcher in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sounds like soccer or a European football is not as translatable, other than just
Leg
being an
strength is
athlete and
great.
being.
Yeah. Yeah. Leg strength is huge. So, and definitely kids, they develop lower body strength before upper body strength. So it kind of piles onto that. And if you're developing strength through sprinting, you're unlikely to get injured. Whereas if you're trying to, weightlift and that kind of stuff and do it incorrectly, you may have problems. But yeah, those are some of the things where if somebody says they do those things, I'm kind of excited because I know I've got to just give them information on technically what we need to happen. But I know when they can do those movements, their awareness in space is pretty good. So they've got a leg up on.
So we've talked about some of the things that kind of give the child a leg up. I'm
Hmm.
curious now from the parenting aspect, like what do you see when it comes to, I guess, golf parents versus the ones that are, ones that are helping to elevate and progress their child versus ones that may be inadvertently holding back their child just through the way that they're coaching or parenting, or what have you seen those two different types of parents?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I know that no parent wants to do harm, but they definitely do. I think what they're too ready to jump in with instruction. So if they're themselves are a good player, that's great because the kid can kind of tag along and see a good action, see a good swing. So kids tend to learn more visually and feel than they do being told. And obviously, I'm a parent too, so I know how much my kids don't want to hear what I've got to say. But so if you can get them to see what a good swing looks like, they're very, very good at emulating those movements. So that's a good way for them to learn, and then also kind of set up some challenge that they could potentially do. Like, don't show them what they can't do. Don't set them up for failure, if you will. So you don't want to. You want somewhat of a cocky kid, but you don't want like a completely obnoxious little crap. But so have a healthy balance there if you can. But when I'm at ranges, sometimes like I'm not at the club, I'm all over the place. I'll see some parents, well-meaning parents, that are correcting every swing that a kid's doing, and it's just like let it percolate. Like give them an an objective or a swing objective or a skill. If you're trying to tell them something different to do with the swing, don't introduce the golf ball as a result immediately. Like try and get the action going a bit. And then if they're doing well, introduce maybe the ball on a tee so they can kind of gradually step up to the skill. Don't tell them something and tee the ball up and divot and expect them to do well because you kind of there's not enough to experience or time experience the movement and they see failure immediately. It takes a special kind of kid to just want failure all the time. So try and set them up for success as much as possible. And the hardest thing in the world as a parent is like give them something to do and then step back and just see what happens. That's as a coach, when it's not my kids, that's the hardest thing to do. Like give them an objective and not walk away. Kind of let them know that you're watching or observing them, but certainly let them kind of do a bit of learning. That's where I think a lot of parents don't do it enough. They don't let the kid experience some failure in a safe environment. They're trying to not let them fail, or they're jumping in trying to protect them too much. But you can't do that. Obviously, I want it to be safe, but like protect them from failure in golf is not a good thing because they're not learning at that point.
And it's
So
impossible because
yes,
they're
so
out there
more
playing around by themselves. Like,
that's
failure is inherent in golf.
at some point we're not there. We can't coach during the game exactly. And Maureen, that's how we got introduced. I go to Kansas quite a bit and coach with her there. Like I have clients in Kansas and she allows me to come out there. And she's a mother, so completely different. She's very nurturing. I'm a dad, so that that yin and yang of the parent dynamic. So a lot of my clients I've worked with a number of years, and they're on the range, and I'll give them something to do. These are adults, and she's there and she's watching me teach sometimes, or she's teaching her own clients, and she's like, aren't you going to help them some more, like they're struggling? I said, yeah, just lay back more, like let them struggle a little bit. I'm watching them. I'm not going to let them completely screw up, but you've got to let them go through that process. If you're jumping in as a coach trying to be helpful all the time, now you're doing the work, the player's not doing the work. And in competitive environments you find out which player's done the most work. Basically that's all it is. I remember my dad was a great student. He was a good athlete. And, you realize how your parents are right as you get older. And he told me when I was young, like I was studying for a test and I was not anywhere near a good student as he was. And he said, I was trying to get some help from him. And he goes, yeah, but tests are just designed to see what you know. And I knew I didn't know enough for what I was getting tested on. So I was kind of pissed off with the answer, but he's absolutely right. It's just, if you don't know it, that's okay. You're going to fail at the test. Now come back and now what do? Do you think you're a failure, or do you go, okay, I know these things, I didn't quite know that. What are you going to do? So if a parent can be as assisting as much to begin with and then supportive when it doesn't go well and try and do debriefs rather than what the hell happened conversations, then that would be more helpful to me.
What would be an example of a good debrief?
That you could ask specific questions about, hey, I saw on that hole you looked like you hit a good tee shot, and then you looked like you had some indecision. What was bothering you at that point? Like, try to make it as much as possible about the situation, not about the kids' either reaction or what the hell are you doing kind of thing. So, what club did you think you were like? What was your target? Did you have a good target? Were you committed to your target? Was there any doubt in your mind? I mean, doubt is ever present. So when you had doubt, did you push through it, or did you back off and start again? Like but try and make it as specific as possible to one situation, and maybe make one as well. Also, like on so and so hole, you look like you backed off once and then you did really well. You hit a great shot. Talk me through that one. So I wouldn't always make it a negative scenario, like what did you do on that shot? But like on this situation, that was a really difficult golf shot. You were out of position. You made a really good decision. From that position you were in, the result you got was really, really good. It may not have felt like wasn't a highlight reel. It didn't go next to the hole, but from the position you were in, you were out of position. You didn't try and solve it in that one shot. You kind of plotted your way around and figured out how to get, say, down in 3 when you'd like to get up and down in 2 from where you were. So, observe what's going on and try and find a more positives than negatives if you can, but use those as learning opportunities, and try and make it as much as possible about the skill, not their anxiety / anger at the end of the shot. I used to, I like to fly. I used to fly, and obviously a high stress environment. Um, so the pilots do a very good job of debriefing. Sometimes you debrief when you're in the air, but basically you come back down and you have ground school and you have flying experience. And there's a lot of ground school before you go flying again. And so if you can kind of break it up into that debrief environment for the golfer, whether they play good or bad, and get them used to it. So it's like, hey, we're going to, you did great today. Let's chat about it. You didn't do as well today. Let's chat about it. So it's not like, okay, we're only going to chat about it when it's crap and we're just going to high five when it's good, because there's a lot to learn from the crap, and try to find ways to make that a helpful debrief.
Speaking of maybe, you mentioned highlight reels, and you talk about the good versus the crap.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes parents are like, when we watch golf on TV and when we're watching golf with our kids, is that real golf? Like is because unless it's a really really bad shot, we usually don't see it. We usually just see the really really good shots and maybe a really bad shot, but oftentimes we don't even see the bad shots.
Yeah, I mean, think about golf on TV. It's entertainment. They're in the entertainment business.
Mm.
When I speak to sections, PGA sections, speaking to other coaches, I jokingly say we should have a GoFundMe for the announcers on TV for them to keep saying what they say, because it's really helpful for our profession, because they get unrealistic expectations in the brain of the golfer, and the golfer doesn't succeed, and then they need us to help. So it truly is a highlight reel. If you've ever been to the production trailer, they literally have a wall of TVs, and the producer's job is to find the best shot that keeps you entertained watching golf. Most people that watch golf are not avid golfers. We may have it on in the background and we're looking at to study it, but it's beautiful scenery. It's kind of entertainment. So there's a lot of casual golf watchers that never play golf. So if you made that truly like a round of golf is, they'd probably lose a lot of that audience, and they're in the money business, so they don't want to do that. So I watched a bit of the Open yesterday, and Scotty obviously did Scotty things, which was amazing. But there was a stretch there on a few holes where he didn't look completely in control of his golf ball, and he got through it. And normally, if that was Thursday or Friday, we wouldn't see that, because he's not one of the. If he's a feature group, they don't show every shot. Whereas now they showed, he's not hitting every green. He drove in a few fairway bunkers. He drove it in the rough a few times. That somewhat links golf because of the wind and everything else. But it was a good illustration of what golf is really like. So if you can try and get into the kid's mind, you need adversity or ability to deal with adversity, and try and have your ego out of the result as much as possible. There's a is it Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way and the ego is the enemy books?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
So that stoic approach, like if I win this tournament, I've still got to go to school tomorrow and do my homework. If I'm the worst in this tournament, nobody's going to know apart from me and two or three friends. So like, it's not going to make you a superstar. It's unlikely to make you a terrible human. So kind of get used to being in that mindset of, okay, what is it? Before enlightenment, I carried water and chopped wood. And after enlightenment, I carried water and chopped wood. You still got to go do the work. So if you can get the kid more in that mindset, um, they're going to enjoy it more. And it's such a wonderful sport it literally took me around the world. So, uh, the more they can enjoy that, and obviously I want them to play as well as possible, but that mindset will save a lot of heartache, and it's not easily come by, but that's definitely where I'd like people to get to.
Excited that the conversation went to stoicism and
Hmm.
enlightenment, and
Hmm.
these are all things that I find fascinating. And one of the reasons why I love golf, and that I'm excited for my own family to be playing it, is because I say this on the podcast all the time. It's a microcosm of life. It's
Hmm.
those 4.5 hours. That's life. The ups and downs. How you speak to yourself. How do you speak to others? How you handle adversity. How you are focused. Intentionality. Like everything is there. Everything is there. And the better you can get at golf, I believe it translates to the better you can get at life, because you understand yourself better.
Yeah, I've probably done more therapy than I need to. I've spent a lot of time with sports psychologists and that kind of stuff. But it's true. The same lessons in life keep coming and hit us on the head, don't they? I mean, it's like you can't escape it. And in golf, obviously, you don't escape anything. So if something happens in an adverse manner on the golf course, and you go, okay, that wasn't the break I was looking for, or I swung badly. I know I shouldn't be swinging that way, and I've just terrible swing. If you could detach a bit from that and say, okay, I know what I'm trying to do. On that swing, I didn't do it. Don't worry about why I didn't do it. Try and focus back to what I need to do. And that's the way I construct a lot of my instruction now. It's like players are like, what happened on that shot? I don't know because I can't tell you everything that went on in the golf swing. I know possibly what it was, but who cares? Like, why do you want to know what you did wrong, in the swing? Focus on what you need to try and do correctly. You may not have all the shots. You may not be able to fly the wedge or whatever. You don't have to be pretty confident with a lot of these things. So I try and get players to be as competent as possible with the skills we need, and then focus on trying to get more competent in those areas, and try and then deal with the outcomes, which is it's tough, but that's life essentially.
We talked about earlier that it's ideal if as a parent you're a pretty good player yourself because the child can kind of emulate and watch you and get an idea of not only how to play golf but the golf swing. But let's just say then that the parent listening right now isn't an avid golfer or maybe doesn't want their child to be looking up to their swing. Who right now in the game like whose swing would you model or have the child maybe look at to be like, okay, that really is a good swing?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of reasons. Scotty Scheffler, from the fact it isn't a traditionally great looking golf swing, and it's very, very competent. So the rhythm of Scheffler's swing is great, even though there's a lot of funky things going on. For a kid, I think that's a great thing to look at because his footwork is unusual. But for me, understanding ground reaction forces, it's phenomenal. Um, I would say his swing, Adam Scott, obviously, is beautiful to look at. Again, phenomenal athlete. Um, I think any player you look at on tour basically has something they can learn from. I think a lot of players, kids, would maybe find somebody that looks a bit like them. Like if you're super strong upper body, then maybe looking at Tiger in the mid 2000s was probably a pretty good model. Um, if you're a kid who's played a lot of soccer like I did, and we didn't go to the gym all the time, we just did stuff. Um, like David Duval, old name, but if you look at a player normally, like you see a lot of players now, they have way stronger lower bodies than they did do when in Tiger's dominating era. I say that's a bit more because Tiger wanted to look good in Nike clothing than it is, technically what it should do. So I would say kids will probably have an idea of whose swing they like. If you're the parent, try and have a look at what players look a bit like your kid or what they potentially look like relative to the parent. So the kid's likely to look like the parent at some point. Um, and try and kind of serendipitously, whatever, just kind of work into subliminally is the word I was looking for, into the equation what that player's swing looks like, and then the kid will emulate that and realize that they don't have to all look like Tiger in the mid 2000s, look like he was chiseled and like just a statuesque body. A lot of different bodies can play this game. So I would try and get them to emulate that, or at least look at that and see what that's about. But I would definitely show them somebody who drives it well. Now, if I was really developing a player, like I may even show them long drive guides, like lady long drive people, because that would be again in those development years a great way to think about. Hey, you can kind of swing freely and hit it all over the place a bit in long drive, relatively, and play well. So I definitely let them know that's a thing.
You had mentioned, John, about the ground forces with Scotty Scheffler, and that understanding it the way you do, he's doing a lot of really good things there. I don't necessarily want to get into what he's doing there, but what I'm curious is how can we teach our kids to understand how to use the ground in either a fun or an intuitive or a natural way, but to understand, is there a drill? Is there a way to stand on a log? Something that they can be doing that's going to translate later in their development.
Yeah, I would do a couple of things. I would make them if you got on an upslope, so I'm hitting uphill, then
Hmm.
then you have to push side so you don't fall over. So when you take a backswing, if you fell to the right, your right leg's not pushing enough to keep you up the hill. So that would be a good way to load the backswing. And then if you went on a downslope, like do it with a middle iron or a short iron, and you swing down the slope, a lot of kids would fall down the slope, not literally, but they'd stumble through. So if you had to stop yourself falling down the slope, your lead leg would have to push to keep you up the slope. And so your brain would figure out, wait a minute, if I don't push harder this way down the slope, I'm going to end up going down the slope. So put them in some awkward positions, tee the ball up if you need to. Don't even have to hit a ball, just make some swings where you brush the grass. That would show them where you have to push. I'd put them where the ball is above their feet in front of them. So if you see a kid and they get very flat at the top of the swing because the club's heavy, they'd almost feel like they're falling backwards. And the same token, if you put the ball below their feet and they didn't push towards the ball enough, so Scheffler, he's almost dancing backwards. He's pushing towards the ball to not fall forwards. That would be another good situation to put a kid in. And again, you don't necessarily have to hit a golf ball. You can just put them in those situations. All the practice tees, unfortunately, are very level. Um, and so that it doesn't set you up to really feel those things. And then if the kid is out there in sneakers versus golf shoes and they kind of slip a little bit, look at where they're slipping. Slipping isn't bad. Um, and if they've hit a few balls, and you can tell younger kids are not going to take divots because they're not strong enough to do it, but you can tell where their feet were. And it looks like their feet have moved around and the grass is disturbed. That's awesome too. And you're seeing that a lot now with longer hitters. I noticed 20 years ago when I got out on tour coaching players that divots weren't massive, but where they stood with a driver and their irons, it looked like the feet had been pushing the ground around. So that's kind of interesting. They're not digging big holes with the club, but they are digging big holes with their feet. Uh, and so
Interesting.
that's
Okay. So I do want to get into this now a little bit because I'm
yeah,
curious.
there you
Okay,
go.
so
There you go.
now they're sitting on a flat surface.
Hmm.
What you're alluding to is the fact that they're really pressing into the ground. Like
Hmm.
are they turning their feet to really kind of ground themselves, and then they're pushing back and forward? Like now let's go on a flat surface with a
Hmm.
driver, for example.
Hmm.
What are the feet doing, or what should they be doing?
Well, so we see a golf swing as a very rotary motion, don't we? If you look at a golfer, it looks very, very rotary in motion. So if I wanted to rotate to my left, I would push my left toe, like if you were running down the court in basketball and I wanted to go left, I'd have to push my left foot forwards, and that would twist my body left.
Mm,
Okay, so we see that, and the same in the backswing. If I push my right foot towards the camera, my body would react. So it's ground reaction force. It's the reaction we're trying to create. What most golfers don't understand, because force is invisible, the pushing side to side in the golf swing for the elite players is massive. So if you have a kid again, the club's heavy for them and they're kind of swaying, then a lot of parents would say, "Hey, don't sway, like stand still." You just killed the kid, okay? Because now they're literally not moving. But if I see a kid swaying to the right, I would say, "Hey, if I was pushing you more to the trail side, pushing you backwards, what would your right leg do?" And they go, "Well, I'd have to push to the right because I don't want to fall that way." Yeah, that's what we do in the golf swing. When we want to go to the right, we push our left leg to the left. As we start to go too far back, we push our right leg to the right, and that's going to push us back onto our lead leg. And then to not fall over, I would push my left leg again. So I would get players to understand the side massively before I start talking about rotation. And again, I said this earlier, the pitchers in baseball are way easier to coach than a hitter. Another reason I think not only the release points, but if you think of a pitcher, they have to push themselves up the mound and then they push themselves down the mound and then it becomes rotary. So I say to players, hey, when you see a pitcher pitching and you're looking at them face on, what do you notice? Well, they go a lot side to side. Yeah. And then they rotate. Yeah. Well, that's the sequence in the golf swing. It's not rotation. It's linear that then becomes rotary. So if you can get them moving side to side, and that's what, again, I said hockey players are easy to coach. I've never been on skates. I've got no desire to, but they have to push kind of a diagonal, don't they? So
mhm.
they're pushing side to side to move is phenomenal. It's great in golf too. So if you can get your kids to do that, like if I was doing junior camps, which I don't do anymore, but I'd do a lot more of that stuff, like movement prep and movement, and then layer in the technical. Whereas we take kids to play golf and we take them into do the junior campus, hey, let's hit some chip shots. And so they're immediately trying to hit something. They're not making a movement. So I would do way more movement stuff than some easy hitting stuff, like a bigger ball or a bigger bat, something like a tennis ball with a big ball. Get them to learn hitting and timing with that. Get them to learn movement with their feet. They wouldn't be as good initially, but they kick the tail of every other kid once they got rolling because they could move and they'd layer the skills on top of that from a technique perspective.
Music to every parent's ear right now. Kick the tail of all the other kids down the road, and that's
Yeah,
kind of
there you
what we're
go.
trying to do is figure out how to put the right
Yeah,
things in place now
yeah,
to help them peak at the right time, at the right age.
yeah.
Uh, John, this has been great. If parents listening right now, you've got such good content that you put out there. What's the
Thank
best
you.
way for people to get into your ecosystem to kind of follow you, learn from you?
Yeah, Tattersall Golf is the website, and Tattersall Golf on Instagram. And I have a guy do social media. He's a lot younger than me, and everybody says no, no joke about that. But I've got YouTube stuff, and we've done an app now that's coming out. And I'm not just saying this. I'm trying to develop a community of people that don't just have to come and see me. And so the app apparently allows us to do things like this, where we can actually, ask questions through a webinar format. There's so much low-hanging fruit and improvement, and we tend to, as coaches, try and make it too much of let's get to the nuances and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of basic stuff can be done, and get the kids going the right direction, or get anybody going the right direction. So there's never been a better time for instruction. There's never been a worse time for instruction, because there's a lot of information out there. So you got to kind of have someone help navigate it for you. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to
the
do.
old double-edged sword.
It is.
John,
It is.
you've got the ears and the eyes of golf parents all over the world right now. Do you have any like parting advice, wisdom, anything you'd like to leave with them or to have them think about when it comes to their journey?
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, it's incredibly difficult when your kids are upset to try and solve the problem, and I don't have a good answer on that, but that is part of the equation in golf. And if you can make it okay to fail, if you will, and how do you learn from that failure, then I think life lessons and also golf lessons will really come from there. And talking to a 12-year-old about Stoic mindset might be a bit much, but if you understand that mindset, you can kind of sprinkle some of those things in there, and help them deal with that. Because the game is amazing. I mean, look, it's taken me around the world, and I get to go to some amazing places, which are just, from where I grew up, ridiculous. But more for me, it's the people involved in the game, and that common language around golf, and that desire to deal with adversity, try and do better, find that in other people. If you can get people to experience that, and you keep them in the game enough, no matter what level they get to, then that's a win in itself.
Well said. John, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, golf parents. Before you go, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you found value in this episode, please follow the podcast, leave a short review, or share it with another golf parent who would love it. Every single one helps us grow this movement to raise future champions together. Thank you. See you next week.